What's going on there, folks? Good evening. It's the Earthmaster here on this Wednesday night, November 16th, 2022, straight up 9 o'clock p.m. West Coast time. Latest earthquake shows a 1.1 into the area of Southern California along the plate boundary. It looks like it's just off the San Andreas Fault. Quite the earthquake activity ramping up around Texas today. Let's go ahead and start off there in the beautiful state of Texas, although this area here, not my favorite part of Texas, pretty dry out here in the desert outside of Pecos, Texas. Got about 11 earthquakes here over the last couple hours. The last couple days here has been pretty quiet. We've seen a 5.3 kickoff earlier this afternoon time frame. Felt broadly all over the place. Let's go ahead and check out the specifics here of this earthquake. The Did You Feel It responses here all over western Texas, including San Angelo, Sweetwater, Lubbock, even around the Plainview area, all the way into New Mexico, Roswell, Las Cruces area, El Paso, Texas. Broadly felt everywhere, folks. That's actually somewhat of a large earthquake. So how rare is it to see that earthquake activity out here? Well, let me bring up the activity in the last, what do we do with it here? We got quite a few earthquakes here. I got quite a few windows open. It's going to be this one. Here we go. 20 different windows open here. All right, so I pulled up here over time since about 1100 or so, 4.5 and above for this area of Texas. And actually, no, let's see, what do we got here? I think this is the last. Yeah, that's right, because 1931, the earthquake down here, 5.8, is actually going to be the largest earthquake recorded in this area of Texas back in 1938 near Valentine, Texas, a little bit further south of this area. Specifically around this area, Pecos, Texas. Yeah, we've seen kind of a share, somewhat of our share of earthquake activity here in this region. Looks like this 5.4, though, is going to top the chart far as the largest earthquake activity goes around this region of Pecos, Texas. Again, the 5.8 much further down south. And this is only the area around Texas that I checked here on the catalog. The last 5-pointer back in 2020, somewhat around this area. But I kind of want to show you guys some historical data. Actually, before we get that, let's double check what the USGS here is stating. I want to go into their aftershock forecast, their earthquake forecast here from this 5.3 that sits just outside of the Minotone or the Pecos, Texas area. USGS aftershock forecast, what we think will happen next. Now, they just recently put this out here over the past few months, actually past year or so. I think it's been about the past couple years. And this is what they're stating. And this is probably just to cover their own, that way people don't really get mad at them when, say, if a bigger earthquake does happen. How come you guys didn't notice? How come you guys didn't tell us that there could have been a bigger earthquake? So they put this out, and it's just some numbers that somebody made up, and they go along with their averages and whatnot as far as earthquake activity goes. Texas is a very different place, though, when it comes to earthquake activity. Okay. 99% chance of a magnitude 3 and above aftershocks within the next week. And it is almost likely that 1 to 60 of those will occur. We've already seen that following the 5.3 today. There's a 73% chance of a magnitude 4 and above aftershocks within the next week. And it's most likely to be between 0 and 7. There's a 17% chance of a magnitude 5. So probably not likely just because of this type of setup here. It's not on a major fault. It's not a major plate boundary. But they do have a 17% chance of magnitude 5. Most likely that 0 to 1 of these will occur. There's a 9% chance that this earthquake becomes a foreshock to something much bigger. Magnitude 5.3 or higher within the next week. Such an earthquake is possible with a low probability. There's a 2% chance of a magnitude 6 and above. So, obviously the percentages go way down. A magnitude 7 out here in Texas, I doubt it. I highly doubt it. Again, this area is not really set up for a 7 within this range. Yes, there is some fault systems out here. And although most of this activity, though, folks, I kind of want to show you guys what's out here, okay? And I think we all know what's out here. It sits within some major oil fields out here, and you guys have heard about it. And it's legit, and it's real. That there's been a lot of earthquake activity, increasing earthquake activity following the oil boom, following these pumping operations. Here's a little simple graph, folks, okay? As long as I don't choke on my... Man, goodness, okay. Somebody's putting a spell on me right now. Earthquakes have risen alongside wastewater injection in Texas. Here's a little graph showing from about 2000 up to some major pumping operations here. These oil pumping operations and subsequent wastewater injections there in Texas. Look at the multitudes here. And this only goes to about 2018. Ever since that major oil boom right here, 2010, there's been a major increase of earthquakes here around the Pecos, Texas area. A lot of earthquake activity. Green is oil production right over here, right? The amount of yearly oil production as it goes up here on the chart. That's the number, millions of barrels. And yellow shows the rise in natural gas production. Not necessarily seen. Oh, okay, right in here. Green, again, green is oil production and blue is wastewater disposal. So blue has definitely increased, right, along with the yearly volumes of barrels of oil. And of course, when you do more operations, more injection of the wastewater, you see more earthquakes. And this is only going to continue for the foreseeable future. The damage is done. The damage is done. There in the Texas, Oklahoma area, and even portions of Kansas. I'm going to include this link here. It was put out earlier this year, January 20th. There's been a lot of studies, folks. I'm not just blowing smoke in the air. I'm not just trying to pull your leg. It's legit. Oil pumping operations, wastewater injection wells are followed up by earthquakes. Sometimes it takes months. Sometimes it takes years. And I think the longer that it does go on, the more likelihood that we'll see a larger magnitude in these oil fields. The damage is there, folks. Read this article. I will include this there in the description at the top of the at the top of the description in the video once this is uploaded. So check it out. There's the aftershock sequence. It's felt all over the place. I want to go back and show you guys activity here. Although the last couple days have been relatively quiet, this only goes back to 2 years. I put this at about 2 years here. And this is only 2.5 and above. These are not the smaller microquakes, which I'm sure there's hundreds more. But over the last 2 years around this area of Texas, Pecos, Texas, right here where we've seen the 5-pointer today, 1,139 earthquakes. Let's go to the largest magnitudes here. 5.4 topping the chart. Definitely topping the chart here for one of the largest earthquakes here in this area of Texas. Lots and lots and lots and lots and lots of 4s, okay, and many 3s, many 2s, and including the ones that I haven't added with the all magnitudes. So this does not show all of them. Over the last 2 years, that is a lot of earthquake activity, folks. A lot. And there is a massive oil fields out here. Look at these real quick. I'm going to show you guys. I'm going to zoom in. Maybe I should have got rid of some of these earthquakes so it doesn't really cover up all the evidence out here in the desert of Nevada. But these are wastewater injection ponds out here. And these squares hold tanks and, you know, the whole process. I'm not going to go over the whole process, how it's done. But check it out for yourself. These are significant oil pumping operations out here with massive wastewater ponds that they inject down below the surface. A lot of folks saying, oh, this is faults. These are faults out here. Well, it's very possible that there could be faults up against mountain ranges and whatnot, some older fault systems. But at the same time, these injection wastewater systems where you inject the waste down below so it doesn't, interrupt your oil business, can create a little bit of havoc on some old fault systems, maybe some that have not been active for millions of years. But just looking at this, folks, it doesn't take a rocket scientist to see all of these beautiful swimming pools out in the middle of the desert of Texas, right? Wastewater, lots of them all over the place, and this is big money taking place out there. I want to show you guys what it looked like here on the Yellowstone overview. Check that out. That was a 5.3 in Texas today. That is a very lengthy earthquake. Here's a 3-pointer that kicked up in Montana, 3.7, I believe it is. Very short, very sudden, very jolty. This was pretty much drawn out for a little bit there in Texas. I do appreciate the folks reporting their reports there on the video that I posted earlier. But that's a pretty lengthy earthquake, and that showed up pretty significantly across the region. Look at this down here in Flag Ranch area. Looks like it lasted for a couple minutes or so. Pretty massive. Well, I shouldn't say massive, but definitely a pretty large earthquake to hit the Texas area. And again, this here is over, let's see here, this is over the last 24 hours, all magnitude. So since then, we've seen quite a few 2s, a couple 3s, including their 4.1 up there in the mix. And, these guys are basing, as far as the forecast goes, these guys are basing their judgment off of a 5.3 in an area that has seen a lot of earthquake activity historically in this region. And I don't think that, I can't think of the word I'm looking for here, but it's not like a 5.3 occurred out in the middle of nowhere all of a sudden where there's no seismic activity, where you can kind of base some forecast on. This is an area that sees a lot of earthquake activity. And I call this area of Texas definitely earthquake country because of all the pumping operations out here, all the oil pumping operations. So it's, the likelihood of something larger in magnitude out here, probably not. If anything, we may see another 4, maybe another 5. But at the same time, we have to watch other areas that have been hit in recent past, far as oil pumping operations go. And it's already kind of showing up here around Oklahoma. A lot of times we'll see areas in the middle of Texas get hit. But it all depends on also the age of these oil pumping operations. If they're new, if they're old, how far they injected them down, the wastewater, how far they injected it down below the surface. But we have seen a little bit of activity up here in the Oklahoma area following that movement in Texas today, just outside of Enid. And I'm sure there's oil pumping operations out here. It doesn't list it on the map, and it's kind of hard to tell sometimes from the topography of the land. Not seeing anything specific here. Let's zoom in here. Sometimes these things are well hidden. Let's see. Let me back out of here and see what we got. Definitely a Ringwood oil field, okay? And I'm sure there's some oil fields out here. Some of them are kind of mixed in. I'd have to go to Google Earth to check that out. But it's in the area of Oklahoma that's pretty known for oil fields and pumping operations out there. So, and Oklahoma is definitely prime for some earthquake activity. Fault systems, yes, there is some north of Lawton and around the Wichita Hills area. Wichita Mountains, I should say. It's just it's something to watch. It's definitely something to watch because this earthquake activity down in Texas followed some unusual activity. Unusual meaning that there's some activity, a swarming of earthquakes down here in southeastern Idaho, up against the Wyoming range, outside of Yellowstone. And also we had that 3.7 kick up here off of the Mission Valley Fault. That's going to be this kind of a Mission Fault, I should say. Somewhat of a lengthy system up here, north of Missoula, Montana. No further activity following that, but kind of seeing a little pattern here across the Rocky Mountains, I would say. and there's a North American craton area that kind of sits within the zone. It's a relatively stable area of the North American plate that really hasn't seen any major movement, while areas around it, that includes areas west here, the Rockies, and areas east of it, have seen some adjustment and deformation of the land. But, just I can't really discredit all of this activity as just coincidence. There's definitely a lot going on here against the North American plate right now. And New Madrid zone over here has been fairly active as well over the last week. We've seen about 10 earthquakes or so in this area of the New Madrid zone. No further activity, though, following today's events there in Texas, but may want to watch that pretty closely with all this activity kind of spewing around the region. But again, I do appreciate all the reports being reported there on the comments. Just kind of a pretty big earthquake, folks. Definitely pretty large earthquake out there around the Texas area. Nothing going on around the Pacific Northwest. Couple earthquakes there, it looks like, over the afternoon and morning time frame. Nothing major. Northern California, about the same. Getting a little activity out here around Half Moon Bay. Did see a 2.8 come in yesterday. We did see another earthquake following that 2.8, little small microquake there yesterday. But that's just about getting ready to drop off the 24-hour map. 1.3 near the Bay Area here, just outside of the San Rafael area, Richmond. 1.6 miles or kilometers below surface. And some spotty activity further into central portions of California. Extreme Southern California, not a whole lot going on. Got a 1.2 near Big Bear City. And some activity just off the Elsinore fault system there. 1.1. That looks like 27 kilometers deep. But really haven't seen any major adjustment here in Southern Cal or any other unusual swarming activity going on. But Texas is lighting up like crazy. I wouldn't doubt it if this swarm continues for a little while. The latest earthquake looks like a 3.8 coming in there just a little bit ago. So things will continue following that movement. Up into Alaska. I got one earthquake here into the subduction zone. Looks like a 2.5 near the Port Graham area, and some further activity across Anchorage and the Cook Inlet area. Big Island, Hawaii, just seen a spike on the signature there of the seismograph. Looks like a 3.9 coming into the area of Pahala, somewhat of a larger quake there for that area. 31 kilometers deep, southeastern flank here of Mauna Loa. Looking at the movement up top, most of the activity generally shallow. We did see a 2.4 earthquake, which is really, really odd. 45 kilometers deep. Let me see. It has been reviewed. So we're starting to notice a little bit of seismic activity way down there. 45 kilometers deep. Kind of odd. So we've got to watch stuff like that. And roughly what we're looking for in this area for some potential magma movement could be around 3 to 5 kilometers deep. But also we can't just discredit this 45 kilometer deep earthquake because something's brewing. Definitely way down below the magma chambers. Could be not a good sign, but we'll watch that pretty closely. And again, Pahala area showing about average earthquake activity. Around the Loihi Seamount, aside from that 3.9. Loihi Seamount, not a whole lot going on out here. Do have a 2.4, 40 kilometers deep, well off the southeastern area, the Big Island, and ways away from Loihi Seamount today. One earthquake outside of Japan area, 5.1 at 61 kilometers deep. We're still watching this area pretty closely here for some larger scale activity. It's super quiet. Mariana Trench about the same. Around Tonga and New Zealand area, not a whole lot going on. We did see a 5.8 kick up into the Vanuatu area, Solomon Islands area, 139 kilometers deep. So a little bit of adjustment. But man, things have been awfully quiet considering all that large scale activity we've seen here over the last week. around Fiji and Tonga. These areas right here, folks, I'm telling you, these areas that we need to watch are right here through New Zealand down. And these other quiet zones here around the upper area of the Mariana Trench. Somewhat other areas have been hit, the Java Trench. We've got to watch these seismic gap zones here for some potential movement. But I think this area down here should be showing some movement here pretty soon. The New Zealand area has been awfully quiet in terms of adjustment following all the activity there in Fiji and Tonga over the last week. Not a whole lot of westward pressure here. One earthquake in northern India. That was coming in from, looks like 8 o'clock this morning. Excuse me. And way up north into Russia. Got a 4.4, 10 kilometers deep there. South America region. Getting a little activity in the Ecuador area. Got a 5.2 coming in. About 140 kilometers deep here at the northern end of the Peru-Chile Trench. The Ecuador Trench that sits right up here just off the coast. Got the South America plate here along with the Cocos or the Nazca plate. Again, let's bring up the plate movement here. This kind of shows the subduction zone here along the South America region. South America plate here sits to the east, and the Nazca plate, that subduction zone, that pressure right here, kind of adding on to some movement over the past couple days. We have seen a little bit of activity here down around the South Sandwich Trench, indicating some further activity up to the north with this northward plate movement, and that could be what we're seeing up here today. A little bit of adjustment further north. There's some of that activity, although over the last week, let's bring up 7 days, and it doesn't really show too much here. But we did see a 5.2 and a 4.7 down here along the South Sandwich Islands area. Let's see what else we got. Puerto Rico, not a whole lot going on. Typical movement around the Puerto Rico area. Puerto Rico Trench here, it's seen that earthquake. 3.6 earlier this afternoon. And the Atlantic Ocean, pretty quiet for now. Just kind of an odd day of earthquakes. What do we got here outside of the Riverside area? Just coming into the map at 2.5 near the Loma Linda area. That's off of the San Jacinto fault zone. San Andreas fault sits over here, the southern branch, which looks pretty quiet for now. Let's see. Here's the Barrett Station. That's probably one of these earthquakes that have happened down in Southern California recently. That could be the 2.5 showing up. Alrighty, let's see what else we got here. Yellowstone National Park. We checked this earlier, but I wanted to check local seismic activity and see what we have. Some of these earthquakes here, not for sure exactly where they're coming from. Looks like some distant earthquakes. It could be some of the 4s and 3s down in Texas, considering the 5.3 showed up pretty massively on this station. Pretty nicely. I mean, that's a pretty significant signature. Local seismic activity is going to be very spiky here on the graph, and not a whole lot. If you notice that, kind of seen things taper off following that 5.3 in Texas earlier. Let's check out the tremor map here and see what we got. Southern Oregon has about 20 epicenters of tremor. This is not volcanic tremor, but tremor along the Cascadia subduction zone. Very low frequency vibrations here that are picked up from very sensitive equipment. Looks like about the southern end of the Cascadia. Aside from that, pretty quiet across the board. Solar weather activity tonight, pretty minimal. Although it looks like something's coming in to the solar flare department. Not visible here, but on the DRAP map here, looks like a little bit of blackouts. Blackout radio, high frequency radio blackout around Western Australia, Java Trench region. From one of these flares, it is sparking up here. Notice that, a little sparky going on. Not for sure how much or how big that's going to be. Won't be geo-effective, aside from just this flaring and the high-frequency blackout there. Let's see. Major coronal hole 46 is kind of turning into view. Again, kind of watching the potential for a forecast, seeing if this thing is going to be geo-effective or not. If it was up a little bit more, yes, we would have a pretty nice solar storm. It looks like these guys have kind of kicked up a forecast around the 19th for some storming conditions. We'll watch that and see if that increases or advances in the coming days. But a little bit of an uptick there, it looks like, potentially from that coronal hole. We'll watch that pretty closely. And the rest of the sunspots right now, let's see what we got. There's the regional sunspot group now departing. And we're left with a couple sunspots that seem to be getting complex magnetic fields here. Down south here along the southeastern side. Also up here on the northeastern section of the sun. Going to watch these two sunspots, 3147 and this one here should be named 3149 because there's 3148. So we'll watch these couple sunspots and see how it plays out in the area. Again, definitely read this article if you guys get a chance, okay? It's pretty cool. It was put out, like I said, earlier this year, talking about big oil and earthquakes that followed, right? Start messing around with Mother Nature. It's going to happen. Going to happen. But if you don't believe me, read this short article. Probably take you, 5 minutes maybe to read it? 10 minutes at the most. It's well worth the read. Put out by not only this site here, but there's quite a few other sites across the internet that show the frequency uptick in relation to the oil pumping operations there across Texas and earthquake activity. So check it out, folks. I'm going to jump off here. Hope everyone has a beautiful Wednesday night. Stay safe out there, and we will chat you guys a little bit later. Peace out.